There are two names that have popped up over the last 24 hours in connection to the Pittsburgh Steelers, both named landing spots. One, a home run hitter in the NFL draft. The other, probably a pretty big splash in free agency. That's where we'll start. Pro Football Network has named CJ Gardner-Johnson, Detroit Lions safety, nickel, all-around defensive back, as a potential landing spot for the Pittsburgh Steelers, saying, quote, Steelers slot corner Chandon Sullivan is on track for free agency, while Pittsburgh might try to find a better second safety to play opposite Minkah Fitzpatrick this offseason. Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, haven't heard that name in a while, could compete for both roles and shouldn't cost much after missing most of the 2023 campaign with the pectoral injury. After another one-year contract in the $6 to $8 million range could make some sense. You hear $6 to $8 million. What are your thoughts there? Also, a guy that's 26 years old is coming off an injury, but was still able to play pretty well in the postseason for the Lions. I mean, you think this is a move that makes sense for Pittsburgh?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, especially at that price point, $6 to $8 million. That's a dream. Sucks that he got injured, that CJ got injured, but I mean, that works out pretty well for the Steelers. I mean, I think this would be a really great move, especially because I don't think the safety class in this NFL draft is particularly strong. And I think CJ Gardner-Johnson would be a pretty obvious upgrade over literally anyone on the roster not named Minkah Fitzpatrick. He's really good. And I think last year all the games that he missed kind of I don't know if that gave people a different impression of him, if it made him kind of go under the radar a little bit, but this is a guy who had 6 interceptions a year ago. He defends every pass, basically, it seems like, thrown his way. He makes so many splash plays, too. Like, this guy gets tackles for loss. He gets interceptions. He's, making tons of tackles. Like, he's just all over the field. And I feel like that's just a very Steelers safety kind of thing to do, is just to kind of not let any play go on without you being involved. I really like CJ Gardner-Johnson. I think he's really good. I think he talks a ton of trash. I think he has an attitude too, which I like as well. And at that price point, like, hard to ignore that he could be a real big impact player for the Steelers.
I agree. Even if you're getting him for a 1-year deal, he's 26 years old, so he's young. This is a dude that you could hopefully turn into a developmental piece and a guy that plays alongside Minkah Fitzpatrick for a while. That price point is beautiful. $6 to $8 million is no issue for the Pittsburgh Steelers, especially because, I mean, you're paying Keanu Neal 1 point whatever. You're paying Demonte KZ 1 point whatever million dollars. I mean, you move on from both of those guys. You could go get somebody else for $1 million later if you need to, or keep Demonte KZ for $1 million and you're totally fine. You move on from Patrick Peterson. There's your $6 million immediately. So there are options to make that deal happen and make that money work. I think this is a huge, this is immediately my favorite signing. We talked about Eddie Jackson the other day, and that's a guy that does make a lot of sense for the Steelers and I think would be awesome. Splash veteran guy, totally rounds out your secondary, allows you to, ease up, less worry, allow Minkah Fitzpatrick to do so many other things. Gardner-Johnson, I think, is in the same boat, minus 4 years on his NFL career, which I think is very helpful. When he was with the Eagles, he was a stud. Last year he was good, and I enjoyed just the small glimpse that we got of him in Detroit. But when he was in Philadelphia, I don't know how this dude didn't get signed immediately in free agency. I don't know how he wasn't one of the biggest names out there on the open market when he left Philadelphia. I don't know why Philadelphia let him walk in the first place, but he was one of, if not the best secondary member of the Philadelphia Eagles, maybe outside of Jalen Mills. Or is it Jalen Mills? Is that the... No, Darius Slay. Darius Slay.
Jalen Mills is a Patriot, sir. That's
he is a Patriot. But Darius Slay, was Darius Slay also a Patriot?
Yes. No. But Slay is Slay's an Eagle. Yeah.
He's a former Lion. See, I'm getting them connections.
Yes,
They're all
there you
go. Outside of Darius Slay, I think that Gardner-Johnson was probably the best secondary guy that they had. Dude's a stud. I think it makes a lot of sense. I like that he talks a little bit of trash. I don't know how much the Steelers need more trash talk going on, but I'm all about a fiery safety who could, take the pedal and make it work. You think this is a realistic option for the Steelers? You think the Steelers would look at a guy like CJ Gardner-Johnson and say this is somebody we could add to the secondary?
Yeah, absolutely. like you said, especially because the expected price is so low. Like, I don't know why you wouldn't kind of go look for something like this, especially, you move on from KZ, you move on from Keanu Neal. They have a ton of opportunities to open up some cap space for him, and they've already opened up a little bit with getting rid of Mitch Trubisky and Chooks, and there was one more, Presley Harvin. So like they have some money to play around with, and this would be a great place to. I feel like because also they're going to, when we talk about a lot of the Steelers' needs, I feel like a lot of their needs are going to kind of the holes in their roster. They feel like they want to address in the draft. Quite honestly, that feels like the way things are kind of generally headed right now. Like there aren't many free agents left that I'm like, oh, the Steelers will definitely be in on this guy. They'll definitely be in on this guy. Like, I don't think it's going to be a big spending spree this offseason, but I think it will. I think they'll have some money to play around with, and I think this is one of the places where they'll take a swing in free agency as opposed to waiting for the draft to try and find someone you can plug and play immediately.
I agree, and I think that I think Gardner-Johnson's a guy that he's so young that you could move away from the draft. Like if your thought was we need a safety and we're going to get one in the second or third round of the NFL draft, cool. But if not, and like you said, the options in the draft are not great, especially once you move past the first. I mean, really at all at any point in the draft. But at 26 years old, you could view him as a guy that you're looking to get 4 years out of. That's a draft pick. And at that point, I mean, him and Minkah Fitzpatrick with Joey Porter Jr. and hopefully another first or second round corner. Like that's great. That is a phenomenal secondary. Young, exactly what you're looking for. I mean, that's the youth movement that I think the Steelers need, as opposed to what they've been going after, which is just like veterans who are proven and can kind of plug and play, bring that leadership. I think that's the other part of Gardner-Johnson is that he's been in the league and he's made an impact long enough at this point that he is a veteran. Like he's a guy that you view and could say he's stepping in here. There's not much of a learning curve, if any learning curve at all. You should expect him to make an impact immediately. He's played on enough teams. I think he's played on 3 teams at this point in his career. Like he's a dude that could come in here and just fill a gap, fill the exact gap that really the Steelers are looking for. Would you go, because you were a big Eddie Jackson guy, would you go CJ, same price? We'll say same price tag, CJ Gardner-Johnson, Eddie Jackson.
Oh, CJ Gardner-Johnson. Yeah. I mean, he's younger. I guess you said same price, but I figure he's going to be cheaper than Eddie Jackson in the real world. I'm much more in on CJ Gardner-Johnson than Eddie Jackson, I would say. Yeah.
Yeah, me too. Just because of the age, just simply because of.
I mean, that's
what
really
you
the only
long term.
It's really the only difference, right? And I think, I think Gardner-Johnson has some better, like, I guess you would call him ball skills. Like he had 6 picks during his last full season. Like that's ridiculous. He led the league in them. Like and just all the tackles for loss. Like he just makes tons of plays around the ball. That Jackson is solid, but he seems like more of a run stuffer as opposed to like a kind of ball skills guy, a turnover guy. Like I think Gardner-Johnson has the better odds of like making splash plays. Like he does that a lot more, I feel like, than Eddie Jackson does, which I feel like is a game changer too.
Exactly. And you can move him around. You can play him in the slot. You can play him in safety. I think that versatility allows you to do a lot of things. Name to watch. Certainly a name to watch for the Pittsburgh Steelers.